There's a homosexual black bear, a heterosexual brown bear, a sexy ambiguous white bear, they're all having a threesome. Suddenly the white bear bursts into tears, runs out of the room. The black bear turns to the brown bear and says, "Don't worry about him. It's bipolar, ladies and gentlemen."
That's a joke.
It's a real joke. I wrote that. I was so proud of it that I texted it to my dad, and 5 minutes later my brother texted it to me. Yes. Proudest moment of my life. So, ladies and gentlemen, are we ready to start the next section of the show?
Yay!
Okay, so I'm going to go over here and then introduce myself as if it's my Edinburgh show. Oh, for fuck's sake. It's like bloody A-level English Lit all over again.
Can you remember that far back?
We'll get to it. So, send them off stage. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the show?
Yay!
Are you ready to party like it's 1990 through to 1999?
Yay!
Bring on the stage, Mr. Marc Burrows, yeah! Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Welcome to my Edinburgh show. All the girls in the room, give me a chair. Yay! All the boys in the room, give me a chair. Yay! All the girls who like boys, who do girls like their boys, who do girls like their boys, who do girls like their boys, give me a chair. Yay! Hi, Steph. Welcome to my show. My show's called The 90s in Half an Hour. It's literally a show about the 90s that lasts half an hour. I'm not great at titles. I'll tell you a little bit about me. My life is a series of weird and pathetic things that genuinely happened to me. About 3 weeks ago, some friends of mine actually put a picture of me on a website called lesbians that look like justinbieber.com. It's a real website. Never heard of it. Yeah, it's a genuinely real site. I'm genuinely on it. Got quite a high rating actually, so. And anyone's sitting there going, that website doesn't have a rating system. You spend too long on the fucking internet. So, this show is called The 90s in Half an Hour. Give me a cheer if you remember the 90s.
Yay!
Okay, the few of you that don't know me will be sitting there thinking, well, we remember the 90s, Mark, but I'm not sure you do. I do have the face of a child. Give me a cheer if you don't know me. Okay, we'll go over here. What's your name, sir?
I'm Phil.
Right, Phil, do you remember the 90s, Phil?
Yeah.
What year were you born?
1982.
1982, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, right, just to prove it, this is my ID. I'm going to read out my date of birth.
25th of April 1981.
25th of April 1981, that makes me 30 years old, ladies and gentlemen, as it does an awful lot of the people in the room. Because this is a room full of mostly people I went to school with. So, this is my ID. I do have to take this pretty much everywhere. Don't mind pubs are okay, challenge 25, challenge 21, it's quite flattering really, isn't it? It does get a bit embarrassing. About 3 years ago I was ID'd in Sainsbury's in Loughborough buying a pair of scissors. 16 to buy scissors in this country. The most embarrassing one was a couple of weeks later, same Sainsbury's, different bloke. I got ID'd buying a 15 DVD, and it wasn't any 15, some 15s are quite cool. Terminator 2, amazing film from 1982. That's a 15, right? Wasn't anything like that. I got ID'd buying the musical Cabaret. One of the few times I've had to prove of my age and sexuality on the same encounter. So, hang on. I've not set my thing to go.
You have.
I have. Is it going? Brilliant. Thanks. Excellent. I have a tech team in. So, anyone in the room born in the 90s? Everyone I know. Sorry? Yes! Brilliant. What's your name?
Amy.
Amy, when were you born, Amy?
92.
1992, blimey. Anyone else feel old about it? You're old enough to drink as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're old enough to go to prison. Any of us can have sex with you if we wanted to, and you said yes. I'm not a monster. It makes me feel old. As all 90s children know, you were baptised in the tears of Paul Gascoigne. Football jokes. Amy, we'll keep referring back to you to check you're okay. When I do the show in Edinburgh, I'm going to make some badges made, get some badges made that say born in the 90s. So you would have a born in the 90s badge. We'll refer back to you. I'll send one to you later, it's fine. So, I've been doing a lot of research about the 1990s, to get into the frame of mind, I thought what I could do is tell some genuine playground jokes that I heard in the 90s, right? Like stuff that I heard at school, that my dad told me, not the racist ones, don't worry. A bit of tension there. So I'm going to tell, throughout the show I will be telling some genuine 1990s jokes. I didn't write them, not my jokes. Stuff like, what does Liam Gallagher say when he orders a bowl of soup? Have a roll with it. Yeah! 90s joke! 90s joke! I didn't write it. So, I'll tell you a bit about me. I mean, a lot of you know my hometown, if you don't know about it. The Philadelphia Cream Cheese Factory is in Chiltern. I don't know if you know that. Philadelphia Cream Cheese Factory is in that bit of Leicestershire. We used to play down by when we were really little, down by the Philadelphia Cream Cheese Factory, mostly basketball, really. And then, of course, I mean, this kind of story always goes in this direction. The gangs moved in, didn't they? The gangs moved in. I got in one little fight and my mum got scared. When you move in with your auntie and uncle. See, what I've done there is get myself confused with Will Smith, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That happens to be quite a lot. Me and Will Smith have got quite a lot in common. We're both children of divorce. We both come from a disadvantaged background. Neither of us has ever made a credible hip-hop album. We're both sexy black men, so... I'll be referring to my notes, by the way, because this show isn't fucking finished. So, why the 1990s, right? The 1990s was a weird time. It was a time where a lot of things changed. Hang on. Yeah. Atmosphere. I love a gig with a party atmosphere. Russ Abbott, yeah. No, the 90s. Yeah, what age? Yeah. Oh, no. That's showing your age. Bella Renberg. Oh God, still going. Why the 1990s? Right? So the 90s was a very special time. It was a decade where everything changed. The 80s was the past, right? The 80s was still culturally a hangover from World War II, from the Cold War, where the stuff we were told to be afraid of, stuff like communists and the atom bomb. We were told to be afraid of what stuff. All this stuff we now think of as genuinely weird, genuinely kind of irrelevant. We can't believe we took it seriously. We can't believe that was such a part of our lives. Stuff like fax machines and car phones that are attached to your car with a curly cable, and Diana, Princess of Wales. Nothing redundant. And then, of course, you've got the 2000s. The 2000s was a completely different time again. We had new things we were meant to be afraid of. Now in the 2000s, we're in the future. We're meant to be afraid of fundamentalist Muslims and internet paedophiles, and fundamentalist Muslims, internet paedophiles. Those are the worst ones. We've done sexting, haven't we? We're all in the kinky text message thing. When you find yourself doing that, when things get a little bit heated, you basically find yourself having phone sex with a complete stranger in a call centre in Mumbai. Mind you, me and Sandeep are still in touch, so it's a good listener. Knows a lot about EastEnders. Those pages were, and the thing is, it's quite charming. You'd find it was a little bit like sending a telegram to your sweetheart in World War I. Darling, war not going well. Stop. I fear we'll be moved on. Stop. Our love making, we soon have to stop. You know, brilliant. And then the message would get garbled. All the time, messages would get garbled. I remember one time when we'd had an argument, me and my girlfriend, and I sent her a message via the operator saying, all I want is just a kiss and make up. That's all I want. The next day she turned up at my house dressed as Gene Simmons. So that's the best joke in the show. That's genuinely the best joke in the show. Just admire it for a second. Everything was different. The 90s didn't start, right? The 90s didn't start in 1990 and ended in 1999. That's not, I think culturally, my theory, is the 90s actually started on November the 9th, 1989. Now, does anyone remember what happened on November the 9th, 1989? No, I'll tell you, what happened is the Berlin Wall came down, right? The Berlin Wall came down officially November the 9th, 1989. That ended everything like that. The Cold War that raged for 40 years ended. Communism, gone. The threat of the atom bomb, gone. Everything. Blink of an eye, the world changed, right? And Germany celebrated. They embraced industrial dance music and the ritual sacrifice of David Hasselhoff. And then at the other end of the 90s, you've got, I think what ended the 90s culture was actually 9/11. It was September the 11th. I think that's what actually ended the 90s. That's when the new threat came in. That's when we had, the fundamentalist Muslims and terrorism. That's when we were told to be scared of that. That was the new threat. Right, and by the way, this isn't funny, but think about that. September 11th, 9th November, 9/11. That's fucking weird. Any conspiracy theorists, then that's Genuinely terrifying. No joke there, I should write one. But yeah, basically you've got two cultural ends of the decade, bookended by controlled demolition projects. And what we learned is that Al-Qaeda are fundamentally better at controlled demolition than the combined forces of Western capitalism. Because bits of the Berlin Wall, still fucking there. Al-Qaeda have let that down in 5 minutes. So, yeah, that always gets a mixed reaction. Sometimes it goes really well. So, the beginning of the 90s was a very different landscape. 1991, completely different landscape. Yeah, George Michael was a talented ladies' man. I can still go around my mate Andy's house because no one has looked at his dad's hard drive yet. That's true. That awkward silence is the people who are in the same situation. So, no, it was very, and I was a massive geek at the time. The 90s was a brilliant time to be a geek. Geeks in the room, give me a cheer.
Yay!
Yeah, you see, I'm not going to ask you, Simon, because you always make yourself the centre of fucking attention. This is my show. So, who else said they were a geek? Anyone don't? Give me a cheer if you're a geek.
Yeah.
Yay! Okay, we'll go AD. I know AD. AD, what's the most geeky thing you've ever done?
Oh god, there's so much.
Geek on, what's geeky about you? What's your favourite geeky thing?
Star Trek, Star Wars, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's
mimicking a line from Star Wars.
mimicking a line. Oh, okay. Which line? Can we try and guess? Is it one of the brilliant ones? Is it one of the really funny ones? Is it Darth Vader? Only you can be so bold. Is it you came in that thing? You're braver than I thought. Is it Luke at that speed? You shouldn't be able to play out in time. Is it any of those?
It actually was that one.
Amy, do you ever use that line during intimate times? Your son's in the room. So clearly it didn't work. No, you get a lot of responses when you ask people if they're geeks. Right? People often say strange stuff, like, you always get someone going, it's because I read books. And I don't think that makes you a geek, reading books. It's a context thing, isn't it? If that book's about a wizard, maybe you're a geek. If that book's by Jeremy Clarkson or something, that makes you merely a massive prick. I am a geek. I realised I was a geek very early in the 90s when I tried to chat up a girl in my maths class, genuinely true, by saying to her, "Hi, do you like Star Trek?" To which her genuine response was, "Well, I like the new generation." Ah, amazing! Except I turned around and went, "It's the next generation." And my sex size 22. I thought I got cool. I thought I was cool now. I joined a band, right? I'm in a steampunk band. Now, does anyone know what steampunk means?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. It is Victorian stuff, right? I'm in a Victorian punk rock band. We dress up like Victorians. We go out and play gigs. A lot of fun, brilliant. I thought it genuinely made me cool. I'm finding it cool. So a mate of mine pointed out that that's the rock and roll equivalent of battle reenactment. Still not cool. Read Doctor Who magazine every month. I'm not weird. I just read it for the articles. So, the 90s were a brilliant time to be a geek, right? I call it the X-Files and Telephone, all 4 different types of Star Trek. There are loads of great films, Independence Day, The Matrix, 4 Star Trek films in the 90s. There was Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, which did ruin it. I know that Star Wars, The Phantom Menace was a shit film, because in the summer of 1998 I did go and see it 7 times, just to be sure. But the most important film, the biggest impact of the film in the 1990s was actually one of the worst films of the 1990s. It was Titanic, wasn't it? I mean, I've got a soft spot for Titanic. I like anything where Leonardo DiCaprio dies on screen. The weird thing about Titanic, and this is really true, is that around 1997 when Titanic came out, loads of cafes and kebab shops capitalised on it by changing their name to the Titanic Cafe, to Titanic Kebab. Does anyone remember that? Genuinely true. You go to Holloway Road in London, there's still to this day a Titanic Cafe, right? Not many of them, most of them sank without a trace. There was one that opened in my hometown actually, a Titanic Kebabs, and they thought there was another one open, another kebab shop opened next to it, and they thought it's only small, it's not a threat to us, isn't it? Turns out that 7/8 of it were only viewable below the surface, so love that joke. And Titanic wasn't the only film that got a cafe named after it. Lots of films did. They didn't all do as well. The Train Spotting Cafe that got closed down because of the toilet facilities. Basic Instinct Kebabs, very popular.
That's the level, just there.
Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, that was pretty good. And the Philadelphia Cafe, of course, they only serve cream cheese there. And besides, most of the staff, anytime there's any trouble, would move out to live with their auntie and uncle in Bel Air. So. This is great. This is brilliant. What goes guzzle, 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 swallow? Monica Lewinsky withholding evidence. 90s joke! I didn't write it, joke from the 90s. So it was all about tribes, that was our thing. We were geeks at school. Our thing was grunge music, it was films, it was making each other piss ourselves laughing. Those were our favourite things. Right, the funniest thing I can, because 15-year-olds are genuinely the funniest people in the world. The funniest thing I can remember we ever did when we were 15 is a science teacher out of the room for 5 minutes, and we turned on the gas taps and pretended we were dead. Genius. The teacher did go on to have a nervous breakdown, which at the time seemed hilarious, looking back, less so. Oh, Mr. Man. Or Madman, as we called him at the time. Not funny. No, it was all about the tribes. That was our tribe. They were the cool kids. They had a different tribe. They liked R&B. I never got on with R&B music, right? Because in R&B music, I like music about truth, as I established. Not much truth in R&B music. Like when R. Kelly sang, "There ain't nothing wrong with a little bump and grind." Wasn't much truth in that statement. Okay, a couple of people get it. I'm just going to expand on that for those who don't get that reference. R. Kelly, of course, the sexy R&B singer, released the sexy R&B tune, "There Ain't Nothing Wrong with a Little Bump and Grind." You still hear on the radio all the time. That's what made me think of this, right? Subsequently, of course, R. Kelly convicted for having sex with a 14-year-old girl. Bit uncomfortable now, isn't it? Every time I hear that song, I think that's massively inappropriate. There clearly is something wrong with a little bump and grind in your case, mate. And there's no consistency to it. I mean, like in radio playing, I don't know if you're aware, but in 1972, Gary Glitter wrote a song. It's called "Do You Want to Touch Me There?" The lyrics genuinely go like this: "Do you want to touch? Do you want to touch? Do you want to touch me there? Where? There? Yeah." You never hear that anymore. Radio won't touch it. There's an injustice being done, I'm just not sure who to. Awkward, excellent. The 90s was quite an exciting, optimistic time, right? For the first time in living memory, we had liberal left-wing governments on both sides of the Atlantic. Over here we had Tony Blair and the Labour Party. Over there they had Bill Clinton, right? And they had a lot in common. Blair and Clinton both rock musicians. They've both been in bands. Blair played guitar and sang. Clinton played the sax. They both considered themselves to be sort of liberal statesmen, right? They both had wives that looked like scary Batman villains. I mean, they weren't perfect. They both had their problems. Tony Blair followed George Bush into an illegal war that caused the death of tens of thousands of people, and we're still living down that. It left a stain on our morals that we still can't get off now, right? Bill Clinton, of course, also followed Bush and left a stain. It was a bit different. But we needed a kind of music that reflected that optimism. Because it was quite gloomy before that. Like 1994, very gloomy year. Kurt Cobain died. April 1994, about 9 months later, Justin Bieber was born. I'm not going to draw any conclusions for you, think about it. Depressing year. We needed music that embraced it, that celebrated ourselves, that embraced the optimism of the time. And that music was Britpop, really, wasn't it? That was my favourite music in the mid-90s, Britpop. Because like 60s music, that was hippies, that was old-fashioned, that was boring. And 70s music, that's what your parents listened to. Britpop was ours. It's all about us. It celebrated Britain and what we were today. It just sounded exactly like music from the 60s and 70s. Tony Blair had this phrase at the time, "Cool Britannia." He did have to stop saying "Cool Britannia" because it was seen as a tacit acknowledgement that climate change wasn't real. Satire. Britpop was my favourite kind of music. I genuinely love Britpop. I know. If I go into a shop with a menswear section, I'll always come out fundamentally disappointed. Menswear, of course. Ooh, that is the most dramatic heckle I've ever had. The Greeks are in, ladies and gentlemen. They've ruined their own country. They're coming over to ours. Satire, topical jokes about now. I love Britpop. Yeah, Menswear, of course, the first band in the UK to have their own email address. And if you get that joke, I love you. And it's staying in because I genuinely love it. Maybe, you see, no one's ever got that joke. Anyway, you do. Excellent, yeah! Laugh next time!
It took me a few seconds.
Well, that's my humour for you. I love Britpop. I know loads about Britpop. If I went on Mastermind, Britpop would be my specialist subject, right? I can name the 3 other members of Sleeper that weren't Louise Went, right? I can name all 42 Manic Street Preachers singles in a row. Don't ask me to do it, it's not funny, but I can. My friend Emily once went through Tom York's bin. Mind you, I once went through my friend Emily's bin. Didn't have sex till I was 22. Britpop was really about 2 bands though, really. It was about Blur and Oasis. That was the main divide. It's not about who you were. Alright, give me a cheer if you were Blur. Yay! Give me a cheer if you were Oasis. Yay! Yeah, it was very different, right? Because Blur were awesome. But Blur were arty, interesting. They were London kind of music for girls to dance to, slashy angular guitars, character studies. They came with this long line from English folk music through the Kinks, through the Jam, Madness, the Smith Blur. Right? That was Blur, right? Oasis, of course. Fucking shit. Oasis, it's controversial. Oasis, genuinely the only band in British music that replaced poor musicians with good ones, but somehow got worse. Actually true. But Oasis captured the imagination the way that no other band did, because like Pulp sang about sort of sex and pornography in the north and life there, and the Manics sang about kind of working class literacy, and Cooler Shaker sang about, I don't know, poppadom, something like that, I'm not sure.
That's Mark
Well, it's okay, it's a retro joke. Thanks. But Oasis sang about cigarettes and alcohol. They captured the mood of the time. You know, the New Lad, a Loaded magazine. Everyone started talking like Oasis. We all started talking like we worked in a post office just outside of Salford. So, have you arranged those letters for me? Sorted. Where did you put the ones beginning with A? Top. How come I saw you down the psychiatric ward last week? Mad for it. So. And of course, Oasis, Liam Gallagher, not the brightest tool in the box. Genuinely true, he once walked out of a Spinal Tap concert because he found out the Spinal Tap weren't a real band. Amazing! I didn't get the New Lad thing, I wasn't a new lad. I don't like sport, that's the main problem with it. I don't like sport, I don't like football, which is kind of tragic really. It's been a problem for me not liking football, because it means I've never had a full conversation with my own dad. So, wow. Yeah, sympathy, that's worth 1,000 laughs. No, I always saw sport through the prism of music. When the Euro '96 happened, and we had, you know, the most significant football tournament to be held in this country in the last 20 years. England did pretty well. It enveloped the whole nation. I was just excited because, you know, Three Lions was at #1 and the Lightning Seeds had finally had a hit. I do maintain that Lucky You is a better song. Anyway. Why does Michael Jackson put cream cheese on the end of his dick?
I don't know, why did Michael Jackson put cream cheese on the end of his dick?
Kids will do anything but a taste of dairy leaves. So, Hayley, I'm so sorry.
He really doesn't get it.
I should hope not. It's okay, he's dead, he's not a threat anymore. He was bad. He was really, really bad. I heard that joke when I was 10. So, I said I wasn't very good with girls in the 90s, right? And that's generally true with one exception. I did have one date in the mid-90s with a girl called Emma. I met her in my hometown of Old Shilton. Now, for those of you who don't know of the town of Old Shilton, right, last time I went, it's a shithole. Last time I went home, there was a sign outside the village pub that said, "Tonight, Old Shilton's got talent." Which is brilliant, because as far as I'm aware, the only talent you can have in Old Shilton is 2 GCSEs and not having chlamydia. Right? That's what we're dealing with. I met this girl down a place we used to go called Townhouse. I don't know if you remember Townhouse, those of you who are roughly my age. There was a place, every little village in the country has a place like Townhouse. Yeah? It's a place where you could go, they'd serve the underage people, we'd go down there, we'd drink hooch, we'd get smashed some Bacardi breezers, then we'd stagger out the fire escape, vomit on the floor whilst watching Kerry Salvin being fingered outside some bins, right? That's what it was like. That is genuinely the laughter of recognition. And I met this girl then, right? I met this girl, and we slow danced to Don't Look Back in Anger, and I didn't even mind. And I was going very well. At the time, I had long blonde hair. Those of you who knew me at the time, Ben, don't spoil the end of the story. Those of you who knew me at the time know I had long blonde hair. I thought maybe it looked pretty cool. I like Kurt Cobain. Turned out I just looked like the guitarist from Hanson. People used to shout "Umbop" at me in the street. Right? Genuinely true. I decided that my way around that was to get a ponytail. That's the cool thing, so I have a ponytail. Now, any men in the room ever had a ponytail? Yeah, fucking awesome, isn't it? I realised at the time, I quickly realised there's only 3 things you can really achieve with a ponytail. You can draw a picture of a butterfly in your arse and pretend you're a real life My Little Pony. You can clean high shelves from behind. Or you can keep flies off the back end of a small horse. That's basically your only options, right? I thought it looked cool. Now the problem was, and I was going over this date, I was like ponytail, and it's going to go very well. The problem was that if you're a girl, right, you've been doing your own hair since you were 4. Right, you know that, you're brilliant, you can do it, it's not a problem. Most men don't see how this is unique to me, it was a new haircut to me, right? I wasn't very good at putting my hair in a ponytail. This girl turned up at my house 15 minutes too early, right? She looked through our living room window and she saw me sat in the dining room chair with my mum putting my hair up for me. Later on that night she got off with my mate Ben.
But you still have hair.
Yes! Kapow! Hadouken! No, it had a happy ending. I did eventually kiss a girl. A few months later, I got off with a girl who was known in our school as Goth Kim. After my first ever gig with my first ever band, she was brilliant. She once told me that she genuinely sacrificed a cat to Satan. So, who's winning now, Ben? It's a lot less awkward when you're not in the room. I did promise you it wasn't at your expense, though. So it's fine. Oh dear. But the 90s came to the 90s came.
My mouth shut.
That's one of your problems. The 90s. I don't even know what that meant. The 90s. It's a good put down, though, wasn't it? Thinking. The 90s came to an end, right? And music changed, everything changed, right? Blur and Pulp released these weird albums. I think everything changed when Princess Diana died. Why did Princess Diana cross the road? Wasn't wearing a seatbelt properly. So, the 90s changed around. Blur and Pulp, not my joke from the 90s. Blur and Pulp released these weird albums that are kind of strange albums about sex and heroin and stuff. They weren't Britpop anymore, they weren't popular. The pop music crown changed, it passed on to the Spice Girls. They were the biggest band around then. And you all remember the Spice Girls. They were a sort of kind of 5-headed, dead-eyed insult to feminism. The Spice Girls basically taught us that what girls want, what they really, really want, is to show their tits, vote Conservative, marry footballers and maintain disappointing solo careers. Cheryl Cole paid attention. Topical jokes about now. And then the millennium came along, and we all thought the millennium would be the future, didn't we? I thought the millennium was going to take us into the future. We thought there'd be hoverboards, there'd be flying cars powered by refuse out of the bin, clothes would dry themselves, every toilet would have a fax machine. Basically, we thought it'd be exactly like Back to the Future 2. In the end, the future was genuinely a lot shakier than that, right? Certainly if you were Michael J. Fox. I'm not proud of that one. Gotta say I'm not proud of that one. The future changed. I think things happened. 9/11 came along, changed the world. The band 911 had to change their names. It was deemed inappropriate. 9/11 came along. We're now scared of things again. We're scared of the internet. We're scared of the fundamentalist Muslim terrorism. We're told to be afraid. We're afraid once more. The Tories get back in. We're at war in the Middle East. The recession happens. We may as well reconnect the curly cable car phones from the 80s. We may as well dig up Princess Diana and make her into a zombie. Some people, when I previewed the show, some people have said, I don't know why you keep bringing up Princess Di again. You really shouldn't mention, why do you keep bringing Princess Diana back into that show? That's the problem with zombies, isn't it? They do just keep coming back. that car crash wasn't an accident. It was deliberately planned to involve to stop an infestation of the undead. She would be a lot more effective in the fight against landmines now, though, wouldn't she? Everything had changed. Everything had gone sour. Everything, and I decided I didn't like the way I was. I didn't like life anymore. I was going to move on. I had some relatives who lived abroad. I thought, I'm going to go and join them. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to go. Right? I'm going to go. I'm going to pack my bags. I'm going to book a cab. I'm just going to go. So I went outside. I whistled for a cab, and when it came near, the license plate said fresh, and it had dice on the mirror. If anything, I could say that this cab was rare. I'm doing it again, aren't I? I keep having this thing where me and Will Smith, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, get confused. It got really bad. Once he had to sit my GCSE English Lit exam, and I had to go and make Wild Wild West. It was weird. I wouldn't mind, but he let my Tamagotchi die. So the 90s came to an end, and I'd like to think that I've moved on. I'd like to think that I've grown up. I've changed since the 90s. You know, in the 90s, my favourite TV show was The X-Files, a programme about a man that chased aliens down a corridor with a torch with his sexy ginger companion. I've moved on from that. I've grown up. Like, my new favourite show's Doctor Who. So, but everything. I thought, have I changed? Because music's changed, culture's changed, fashion's changed, everything else has changed, everything else has moved on. Have I? I still fancy the same kind of girls that I fancied in the 1990s. I still fancy geeky girls. If I see a girl wearing Doc Marten boots, coloured tights, and librarian glasses, I will follow that girl home. Of course, if you do follow around girls wearing Doc Marten boots, coloured tights, and librarian glasses, eventually you will get punched by a lesbian. Not every time. Some of them take 4 or 5 minutes to work out that I'm not also a lesbian. It's going so well. Ladies and gentlemen, the 1990s were a brilliant time, and genuinely, I think we've come to the end. As we come to the end of the show, I think we've lost something of that period, right? It was a time when we celebrated ourselves. We weren't afraid of anything. We weren't afraid of the communists and the atom bomb. We weren't afraid of the fundamentalist Muslim internet paedophiles. We weren't afraid of anything. We celebrated ourselves, and I think we've lost some of that in society today. And that's the point of the show, just for half an hour to celebrate that. And I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I hope you join me for a drink afterwards, because tonight we're going to party like it's 1999. Thank you very much. The Sad January is a terrifying gig. I've never done quite so much. I've never done a set and then a show. It's the longest amount of stand-up I've done in one go, and there's far too many people in the room I know, which makes it genuinely very terrifying. My mum's here. My mum's here. Mother, how much weight have you lost in the last year? 5.5 stone. If anyone has a friend who's male, wealthy, and between the ages of, 25 and about 40. She's going on bird. Can you please give a round of applause for Pete Gardner for providing the venue and sound? I think we're going to go down the pub for a drink if anyone wants one at some pub. Thank you very much. Please have a good life. My name's Marc Burrows. Thanks.